All right, thanks very much, Hampton. We appreciate it. Now, joining us from the Banking Committee is Republican Senator Jim Demint of South Carolina. He plans to put a hold on the Bernanke Fed nomination. Mr. Demint, welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Larry.
You know, it's interesting, before we get to your hold on the Bernanke thing, there's a new Rasmussen poll out. You may have seen it. Just 21% of Americans favor Bernanke's reappointment, and 41% oppose it. Now, those are real bad numbers. Your take?
They really are. Larry, you know all of our material hopes and dreams really rest on the Federal Reserve. The monetary policy affects our jobs, the economy, our wealth, and really the economic system around the world. So it's probably the most powerful institution in the world. Yet its core mission of protecting the value of our dollar, protecting employment, have been an utter failure for the last several years. And the Fed, as you pointed out at the beginning of the show, has yet to admit that loose monetary policy, along with bad policy with Fannie Mae and other things, have created this crisis. And one of the things I said to him today that makes me the angriest is he has pushed the blame from what he did to the free market capitalist system, and now they're using that as an excuse to overregulate our whole private economy.
You know, even Tiger Woods fessed up on his indiscretions.
Right.
I think it's time for Mr. Bernanke. It is fascinating, sir, that he refuses to take any responsibility for the monetary bubble that he helped create as Alan Greenspan's co-pilot, and blames, as you say, free enterprise. Now, let me ask you, you opposed the nomination. From what I gather from reading, you were going to put this thing on hold. Can you tell us what that means?
Well, they would like to approve Bernanke by unanimous consent. Most things in the Senate happen that way. And when they say I'm putting a hold on it, what it means is I'm asking for debate on the floor of the Senate and a real vote, so that we can get these issues out, so that the American people can see what's going on. I'm also going to insist that we move ahead with an audit of the Federal Reserve so that the American people, as well as the Congress, can see what's going on. I don't want Congress to be managing the Federal Reserve or overseeing them, but I think we need to know what they've been doing, because they've greatly expanded their mission and they're playing in markets all over the world when they're supposed to be protecting the value of our currency.
This, I take it, would be the Federal Reserve Sunshine Act.
That's right.
And let me just ask you, because this is very significant stuff you're talking about, putting a hold on this. How long will this process take? In other words, if you don't get a vote on the Federal Reserve Act, which would open up these auditing procedures for the Fed's lending and their open market policies, how long before the nomination is voted on?
It depends on the schedule on the floor. I mean, they can put him on the floor for a vote anytime they want to, but it's going to take 2 or 3 days to deal with it unless we give unanimous consent to shorten the time. And with the health care bill on the floor and the other things they want to do before the end of the year, what I'm hoping we can do is just use a little leverage to get a vote on this audit and to get a little bit more debate on what the Federal Reserve is doing and what it should do, so that we don't get surprised like we did with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Right before Fannie Mae crashed, Bernanke told us that they were well capitalized and were not a problem. He said the subprime market was not a problem. He has a lot of quotes that I read today in the hearing that were simply not true. And the problem is not only Wall Street, but all of us make big decisions based on what he says. And unfortunately, he's been very wrong over the last few years.
You know, I'm surprised people haven't surfaced, senators, for example, have not surfaced other names. Now, I understand it's a presidential nomination. But, you know, you've got, for example, John Taylor, Professor John Taylor, out at Stanford University, whose Taylor rule, along with watching the value of the dollar, he's a frequent guest, would be very useful for the Fed, in my judgment at least, an improvement from what Bernanke's doing. You have Harvard professor Marty Feldstein, who was on this program last night. Frankly, you have Forbes magazine editor-in-chief Steve Forbes. In other words, it's not as though America doesn't have other people that could manage our money and the value of our money better than Mr. Bernanke. Why haven't these other names surfaced?
Well, I don't know, but the more you listen to Bernanke talk, Larry, the more he sounds like a central economic planner rather than a free market capitalist. And some of the names you mentioned, particularly Steve Forbes, he understands how wealth is created. These folks that are running the country now, they know how it's traded, but they don't know how it's created.
You know, talking about your Federal Reserve Sunshine Act and the GAO, General Accounting Office audit, you know, it takes 5 years for the full, unedited FOMC minutes to come out now. 5 years. Now, that is secrecy, if there was ever secrecy. The GAO audit, as I understand it, would come out in 6 months after the meeting. So America would have, it's not like they're sitting in the meeting with the Fed, but at least the public in 6 months after the FOMC met would have all the information upon which to make a judgment. That doesn't seem like over-politicalization or anything like that. It just means it's our money. Let the people know.
You're exactly right. Independence does not need to mean secrecy. And if several months after they have their meeting and make their decisions, it's too late for us to second guess, but it needs to be exposed, particularly the trading they're doing, the loans to banks all around the world, the things that get way outside the scope of their original mission that can affect our monetary policy. We need to have a better understanding of what they're doing, particularly when they're printing money, when they're helping to finance the nation's debt when they said they wouldn't. There are a lot of things here that could undermine our whole economic system, and we need to know what they're doing.
Just a last one, sir. Insofar as you're putting a hold on this and getting this GAO audit bill through, I take it Senator Bunning agrees with you. I was going to ask about Senator Shelby and how many others are of a similar mind.
I need to talk with them, particularly about the audit. I think we've already got about 30 co-sponsors here in the Senate. That's a pretty large number. I think they've got over 300 in the House. So I think we have a real shot at passing this, particularly after hearing the numbers you just mentioned as far as how the American people perceive the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, I mean, 21% favor Bernanke, according to the latest poll from Scott Rasmussen, who's one of America's best pollsters. Only 41% of Americans think that Bernanke should be confirmed. Let me ask you a bottom line. Will Bernanke ultimately be confirmed in your judgment, or do you think that stirring the pot like this might come up with a new name?
He will probably be confirmed, but I am stirring the pot just so we can get some sunlight on this. And who knows, Americans have been standing up and speaking out about a lot of different things, and when they create some pressure, good things happen here in Washington.
All right, I agree with that. Senator Jim Demint, I cannot thank you enough. I know it's been a very busy day. Thank you, sir.